sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, buckle up for today's deep dive. We're about to go deep into this this whole world of online debates.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I know, right? So online debates, lawsuits, and even Joe Rogan ends up kind of caught in the middle. It all starts with this clash between, a Christian apologist, so somebody defending Christianity using logic and arguments, and an atheist who is ready to challenge those beliefs.
Right.
We've got a story here. I think it's really going to highlight how sometimes...
I love these kinds of stories.
Me too. How faith and reason and just how we talk about things publicly.
Oh, especially in the digital age, right?
And in the digital age.
Yeah, like how that's changing.
Exactly, it is. So it all begins with this debate. Wesley Huff, he's our Christian apologist, and Billy Carson, he's our atheist. They go head-to-head debating the truth of Christianity. And from what I've read in this article, Huff, he seemed to really come out strong. He's got this background in theology, and he kind of delivered what looks like a knockout punch.
Really?
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, did Carson just, disappear from the internet?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Instead of just accepting the outcome or, maybe penning a rematch, Carson decides to take legal action against Huff.
Wait a minute. He sued because he lost the debate?
Well, not exactly because he lost, no.
Oh, okay.
It's more about Huff sharing clips of the debate online.
Oh, interesting.
So Carson's claiming Huff used his name and likeness without permission, and this throws us right into this whole messy world of fair use laws.
Right. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Especially with online stuff.
Yeah, and especially debate footage.
Like, who owns the rights to what's said?
It's a great question. It's a great question. So you start to think, is Carson trying to control how people see this? Like, erase the debate from the internet completely?
I mean, it kind of seems like it. Yeah. So what did he do? Just, send a nasty email?
He actually sent Huff a cease and desist letter claiming he wasn't ready for the debate and shouldn't be judged on how he did.
Interesting.
He even said he was misled about the format and who'd be there. Like, he was caught off guard.
So he was saying he was tricked, basically.
Well, that's what he's saying.
Okay.
But Huff, he's pushing back on all that.
Really?
He's saying Carson knew exactly what he was getting into. The format, the topics, who'd be there. He's even saying they talked before the debate.
Oh, wow.
About some of the things Carson had said about Christianity in the past.
So it's like, he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, what's really going on here? Is it really just about, protecting his image, or is there something else going on? It makes you think.
It does.
But what could this mean for, other people who share debates online?
Yeah. And now this is where Joe Rogan comes in.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Huff. He took this whole thing to a bigger audience.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he went on the Joe Rogan Experience, episode 2252, and he shared his side of the story.
So Rogan's giving him a platform, basically.
Yeah. And Rogan's known for being open-minded. He likes to talk about controversial things.
For sure.
So this just adds more fuel to the fire.
Of course.
It brings more attention to the whole thing.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because Rogan himself, he's been in the middle of religious debates before, but the story doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
We've got Nate Marquardt. He's a former UFC fighter, very strong Christian faith. And he brings another layer to this whole web.
Really?
Yeah.
So now we've got, two very different perspectives on Christianity, and they both somehow end up connected to Joe Rogan.
Exactly.
It's like this weird triangle.
It is. So Rogan, he was on Mike Tyson's podcast.
Okay.
And he said something about the Bible losing its meaning through all the different translations. He even compared it to Instagram's translate feature, like translating from Hebrew to Latin to Greek to English. He's saying the message gets messed up along the way.
Okay.
And Marquardt, he wasn't having it. He basically called Rogan out, saying that's a huge oversimplification of how the Bible is translated. He talked about all the experts involved, working from the original languages, really trying to keep the original meaning intact.
It's a good point.
It is.
That's a good point, especially when we're talking about something as important as religious texts.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we shouldn't just take things at face value, even if they're coming from people we like or people with a big following.
Absolutely. We've got to be critical thinkers. We've got to do our own research.
Yeah. So as we dig deeper into this whole saga, I'm curious, what do you think all this says about, the bigger conversation around religion in the digital age?
It's really a crucial point in our deep dive, because these things, they seem separate. but they're all part of something much bigger. This tension between traditional beliefs and how information is shared in our digital world.
It's like we're seeing a mini version of how society is changing right now. Like these old beliefs are being challenged because of all the new information and new ways of thinking.
Definitely. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
It is.
But it's important, It's not just about who's right or wrong.
No.
It's about creating a space where we can have these tough conversations respectfully, so we can all understand these complicated issues better.
I couldn't agree more. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about how all this fits into the bigger picture. Let's keep going. I want to explore what this means for faith and reason in our increasingly digital world.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's like each of these controversies, the lawsuit and the Bible translation thing, they show us a different side of this whole battle between faith and reason.
Yeah.
Like we see it happening all over in the modern world.
It's true. So with the lawsuit, we're talking about like real legal stuff,
Right.
Intellectual property rights in the digital age. And it makes us think, how do these old laws even work when it comes to all this new online stuff?
Yeah, it's moving so fast the law can't keep up.
Exactly. But then with the Bible translation debate,
right,
that's getting into like deeper questions.
Oh, yeah.
It's more philosophical.
Definitely. It's about truth.
Yeah.
And how we understand like these old texts today, what do they even mean now?
Yeah. And it's wild that both these things, they both connect to Joe Rogan.
I know, right?
And he's not a theologian or a lawyer or anything.
He's not, no.
So it's interesting how he's become part of this conversation.
It is. It's like he didn't even mean to, but he's this lightning rod for these debates.
Totally.
And now everyone's talking about faith and reason because of him.
Yeah, and he reaches so many people.
In millions.
So it's like he's accidentally made this huge impact.
He has. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
It is how these online platforms can do that.
Okay.
Give people a voice, spark these big conversations, but it's a double-edged sword.
For sure.
Because it can lead to misinformation, people getting divided.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. So it's on us as the audience to think critically, be careful about what we believe, what we share.
Right. We can't just like swallow everything we see online.
No.
It's so easy to get trapped in those echo chambers, where everyone just agrees with you all the time.
Yeah.
It's not how we learn.
Yeah. We got to get out of our comfort zones, hear different sides of things.
Exactly. Like with Marquardt and Rogan. Marquardt was challenging Rogan because Rogan oversimplified this really complicated thing about Bible translation.
Yeah, and Marquardt, because he knows about the languages and all that, he was able to give a better, more accurate explanation.
That's the whole point of the deep dive.
Exactly.
Like we can't just skim the surface.
No.
We got to go deep, look at the history, different points of view, the subtleties of language.
Yeah. Like when we're talking about Bible translation, there are different ways to do it.
Right.
Like there's formal equivalence where you try to stick to the original words as much as possible. And then there's dynamic equivalence where you focus on making sure the meaning is clear.
So modern readers can get it.
Exactly. And each way has its pros and cons.
Right. It's complicated.
It is. It shows how much work goes into translating these old texts.
Yeah, it's not just like swapping words around.
No, not at all. So as we're wrapping up this part, I got to ask you, what are like the main things our listeners should remember?
Oh, good question.
When they're thinking about faith, reason, and the digital age?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be a critical thinker.
Okay.
You got to really question everything you see and hear, especially online. Check where the information's coming from, who's saying it, what their biases might be, try to find different viewpoints.
It's like we're all detectives now trying to sort through all this stuff.
Exactly. Don't just believe everything you see.
Right. And the second thing, I think, is to be respectful when we're having these conversations.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about faith, science, politics, whatever.
Anything controversial, yeah.
It's so easy to just want to win the argument.
Oh, I know.
But that doesn't really help anyone understand each other.
No, it doesn't. We got to be open-minded and try to see things from other people's perspectives.
Yeah. It's about learning from each other.
Exactly.
Even if we don't agree, it's about connecting as people.
That's it.
And having real conversations.
It's not just about being right. It's about understanding.
Exactly.
And the last thing I'd say is embrace the fact that these things are complicated.
Yeah.
There are no easy answers.
No.
It's okay to feel uncertain, to say you don't know everything. Be open to changing your mind as you learn more.
It's like we're all on this journey of learning.
We are.
And it's okay to not have it all figured out.
Exactly. And as we go into the final part of our deep dive,
I think it's good to remember how these stories, these different viewpoints, connect to the bigger picture of what's happening in society. We see this tension everywhere, this push and pull between faith and reason, tradition, and the modern world. And the internet is where it's all playing out.
it's wild how a lawsuit or a comment about translating the Bible can suddenly turn into these huge debates.
Exactly.
It just shows how powerful ideas are and how important it is to talk about them in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like we're watching culture change right in front of us, And these online platforms, they're like the new town square where all these big debates are happening. It makes you wonder, what does this all mean for faith and reason? How will they exist together in this digital world we live in?
It is the big question, isn't it? And honestly, I think each of us has to kind of figure that out for ourselves as we go along. What's obvious is the old ways of doing things, like how we used to talk about these issues through churches or universities or whatever. It's just not working the same way anymore. Yeah, it's like the internet has made information available to everyone, which is great. But it's also kind of overwhelming. We don't have to rely on experts to tell us what to think anymore. We've got all this information, all these different opinions right there on our phones.
And that's both, really exciting and kind of scary.
Right.
Because now it's our job to figure out what's true, what's not. We have to be careful about what sources we trust and be willing to listen to people who see things differently than we do.
It's true. We have to be our own filters, almost. We're all creating our own news feeds, trying to make sense of all this data flying at us. And it's not just about facts, right? It's about what we believe in, what matters to us, and how we understand the world.
Exactly. And it's interesting because even as traditional religions are maybe losing some followers, there's this renewed interest in spirituality, in finding meaning.
Yeah.
People want answers to the big questions. They want to connect with something bigger than themselves. And they're looking everywhere for it, online and offline.
I see that too. It's like we're in this really interesting time where the lines are getting blurry, what's faith, what's reason, what's old, what's new. It's all mixing together, and it's happening right now online where we spend so much of our time.
It is fascinating. And that's why these stories we've been talking about, they matter. They're not just random events. They're part of this bigger shift that's happening, this back and forth between faith and reason in a world that's changing so fast.
Okay, so as we wrap up this whole deep dive, what are the big takeaways? What should our listeners keep in mind as they're figuring all this out?
Well, I think the most important thing is to stay curious and be open-minded. Don't be afraid to question what you think you know, to listen to different points of view, and to talk to people who see things differently than you do.
Yeah, it's be okay with not knowing everything, be willing to learn new things, and to maybe even change your mind sometimes.
Exactly. And the second thing is, be smart about what you see online. We have to be able to tell what's real and what's not, who to trust and what to ignore. It's we all need to be detectives now in this world of information.
It's true. We have to learn how to find the clues, the real information in all the noise.
Right. And lastly, I think it's good to remember that all these conversations about faith, reason, all of it, it's really about how we connect with each other as human beings.
Yeah, trying to understand ourselves, our place in the world, and how we relate to other people.
It's about finding common ground, even when we disagree, and trying to create a world where we can talk about these things in a way that's kind and makes sense.
I like that. It's not about winning or losing. It's about understanding and connecting.
Exactly. And to wrap this all up, I want to leave our listeners with this. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to find different perspectives, and to come to these conversations with humility, wanting to learn.
Such good advice. It's when we're curious, when we're open to learning, that we really start to understand the world and ourselves.
And you never know what you might discover along the way.
That's the fun of it, right? You can go down these rabbit holes, learn all sorts of new things. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.